I'd like to offer you an overview of the QCF L5 Diploma in Management Leadership, the Managing Activities module for this year. The assignment will be handed out on Tuesday the 5th of the 10th and is due in on Tuesday the 30th of the 11th. This falls within the first couple of weeks of your recruitment and selection unit. We have a practical activity on Tuesday the 9th of the 11th where you will work in groups to achieve the bridge building activity. This is group work with a personal reflection and individually submitted work on Tuesday the 30th. This assignment top sheet is the same as your personal development, and you sign and date it when handing it in. Here we have the Edexcel learning outcomes and the assessment criteria. 5 learning outcomes, each with 3 assessment criteria points per learning outcome. So quite a bit of work. This is a 10 credit module. Here we have the unit scenario, which is from the Edexcel text within the unit specification document from Edexcel, and overviews the orientation of the module, looking at mission statement, structure, culture, management techniques, things like just-in-time management, total quality management, lean manufacturing, this sort of thing. So it's the sort of overview of what we'll be studying within this unit, and the impact on management and the areas of management which we're going to be looking at. Part A, reflective of your organisation. This is where you tell me about some of the academic concepts, theory, examples which we cover in the class, how these are used or potentially could be used within the workplace. As I've stressed previously, if you are not in a middle management or operational management role, maybe supervisory role, or looking to be in a supervisory middle management role, put yourself in that position, and for the purpose of this you can write it in the first person. You can state that you believe something should be used a certain way. You can say that total quality management would be a useful tool to implement into your organisation by doing X, Y and Z. So here, with this first part, we're looking to the first 2 outcomes, 1 and 2, and it is an overview where you tell me about the importance of the mission statement and the structure and culture of your organisation or the organisation you are studying. So here you have to identify and evaluate the mission or the vision statement and how this has been accepted by the organisation, embedded into the organisation, how the staff or all employees have bought into it, this sort of things. You will explain the structure. This was covered in session 1. We looked at a series of diagrams of different types of structure. Functional, we had hierarchical, we had ones with many layers. We looked at small organisations, very large organisations. There is quite a large PowerPoint in the virtual learning environment which you can review to reflect on session 1, which should help you with this part A of this assignment. You have to identify and define organisational culture. Remember, a culture can be a set of beliefs, values, opinions, historical norms, traditions which have been carried on for quite a few years. Can be the culture can have an impact on public, whether it's a public sector organisation, a private sector, entrepreneurial, small or large. So at the end of session 1 and into session 2, we started looking at the importance of a culture and motivation, and there are some good academic theorists which you can draw upon for this. For example, in the Betts Supervisory Management textbook, you'll find some excellent examples of culture in there. We also have to look at the techniques which are used by an organisation which aid with its customer-orientated approach, customer-centered, customer-centric. So what types of techniques does your organisation use to meet the customer needs, to put the customer at the centre? Total quality management, have a think back to that, TQM and TQC, and total quality standards, and the benchmarking of services or products, which we mentioned in these sessions. This needs to be reviewed at this point. And then identify two methods of operational management techniques which aid the management of activities. Again, TQM, JIT, Lean, business process reengineering, some sort of restructuring, Six Sigma. We'll be looking at a few examples here. And then an example of a project management method which you will find useful as a manager in your own workplace. We'll be looking at a few, but I suggest in this one you look at the planning and control, or the tracking document, which we're going to be using for part of the next part B activity, the workplace simulated bridge build. This will draw some relevance to project management for those who don't actually work or have had much contact with project management. So part B, workplace environment simulation. Learning outcomes 3, 4 and 5. The bridge, this is your team building activity. You have to work with class colleagues. I'll be putting people into groups and you'll be carrying out this bridge build activity as directed. So you've got a scenario there about why a bridge building activity or why a team building activity would take place, about team cohesion, the forming and norming and then performing of teams, if there's been a merger and there are some problems, how you can sort of help to bring people together, these sort of ideas. So we have to look at 3 learning outcomes with this one. Be able to develop work plans. You have to be able to develop some objectives and then evaluate any standards for the given business. So here you will be planning how to use your resources and allotting roles in the team. I'm not going to do much on SMART because as a team you have to work out this specific measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound objectives and apply those to how you intend to build this bridge. And then the quality standards in place for the bridge build using the labour and the resources that are available to your team. You have to think about this one quite deeply. But it's not that hard, so don't overthink this part here. Manage your business activities. It's about allotting team roles, the delegating of work within your plan. So this is where a very useful type of planning comes in, which we'll be looking at. You might have already constructed a Gantt chart. If you haven't, we'll be looking at that in session 3, in session 4, and some examples of how Gantt charts have been used in the past for other project management areas and used quite easily and successfully. So here you need to evaluate the processes used to delegate work in a selected work group, or this is your bridge build, and then evaluate the methods to monitor this. How you monitor this. We did mention KPIs in the first session. Look at your notes and see what a KPI is and how this can be applied to your bridge build. And lastly, learning outcome 5, the health and safety. There will be documentation posted in the VLE of a risk assessment, a standard risk assessment form used in a lot of organisations. You will have to take this and fill it in the best of your ability at the time with given resources and labour and knowledge of the team, which will be fine as long as you apply this and put in the information that you have at your hand using secondary information for this activity. That will be fine. You can be quite creative if you want to do it as if you are doing it in the workplace. And you also have to look at the impact of this and the legislation. So what happens if you didn't fill in a health and safety risk assessment and the potential consequences? There also is a slight lawful element on this about the Horsaw Act and there's some other acts which we've got some research about using substances and materials, which we can have a look at that and then draw the useful information into your health and safety documentation. There is also some method statements which have been used in the past, which go a bit beyond what we want to do, but a very basic attempt at a method statement should help you meet some information for this learning outcome, part 5. And then indicatively, if you want to get a slightly better grade, you can look to do the personal review and evaluation by meeting these half a dozen bullet points I've put under the examples for guidance here. Here we have the assessment criteria, as which is mapped on page 2, and your indicative grading here, which I'm going to highlight now, and the referral element, which I will highlight now, which you need to look at, quite important, and the resources, which all people get, which are very strictly these ones here, and the permitted resources used under within a controlled environment. You can use a pencil to mark the paper in the card that is taken away before any sort of building takes place. And there's a standard plastic ruler which I use to verify the gap, which you can just ask for and request at any point. Here we have the aims of the activity. Quite importantly, noting that it's 40 minutes from when we go into the room and you access your area with the resources laid out for you. That's the time we have to make this work, when all your planning and preparation and then monitoring and note-taking should be done. Okay, hope you enjoyed this activity. Over the last couple of years we've run something similar, and it's always gone down quite well with the students to do something practical and add a practical element to an academic type subject. Okay, please remember that it's due in on the 30th of the 11th, 2010. Thank you.